way to the Texas Select. We're pretty much everything packed up, not pretty much, we have everything packed up in the back. Everything except for Forging and Anvil, because they're going to have Jay Nielsen's Anvil, the one that Texas Fair Supply and Jay Nielsen collabed on. We're going to have that anvil that I'm going to forge on, so I didn't need to bring an anvil. And then we're using a ribbon burner forge. I can't remember exactly who makes it, but when I do the live stream tomorrow, I'll tell y'all, you know, exactly what forge we're using and where to find them. But yeah, we're driving right now. We're in the old Honda Odyssey, and I've got all the hammers, a hammer rack, and all that stuff back there, and then a whole bunch of knives and the war scythe. Now, if you don't know what this is, so this is the Texas Select, you know, cutlery event. It's a long name. We just call it Texas Select. It's at the Austin County Fairgrounds, and
in Belleville.
It is in Belleville. So Belleville, and in Texas we have Bellevue and Belleville, two completely different areas. So Belleville, it's down kind of like in between Austin and Houston, and even though it's in the Austin County Fairgrounds, Austin County is not part of Austin, Texas. It's a different part of Texas, and it's about a 5-hour drive, 5.5-hour drive. We're about 45 minutes into it right now, and we're gonna go down there. At this event, I'm going to be doing my forging demo for 2 hours on the stage right before Jay Nielsen does his demo for the anatomy of an anvil. So I'll be the demo with the actual forging process. So I'll live stream the demo. It starts at 9 a.m., goes till 11 a.m., and then Jay starts his demo after that. But we'll be live streaming the demo on Saturday, and then, which is tomorrow, and then we'll be live streaming the Sunday demo. I think the Sunday one is only an hour. I'll find out whenever I get down there, because they pushed the demos back an hour because, you know, it's Sunday, people are at church and different things like that. So they pushed it back an hour. I don't know if they're giving me the full 2 hours for the Sunday demo. If not, then I'll just forge one knife. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to forge 2 knives on stage. I'm going to do a full tang camp knife and a full tang bowie, and kind of show what preforms do, the difference between a little bit of a difference in preform takes a knife from a drop point to a clip point pretty quick. And then of course I'm going to forge 2 knives in 2 hours for them, so that, you know, we can show what I can end up doing. And they're going to be good sized knives. They're going to be big knives, like probably 13, 14 inch overall length knives. And the thing about this show is, when it first started, the Texas Select event was a Forged in Fire alumni event. So most of the people who went to that show, not most, like at the beginning, all of the people who went to that show were all Forged in Fire contestants or champions. And then it kind of grew into a bigger show where it was Forged in Fire people plus other knife makers. Now, the deal with this particular show is there are no
manufacturers.
Yeah, manufactured knives. Like it's all people who made their knives.
No TPO.
So, yeah, you're not going to see Spyderco or anything like that there. No Microtech. The craziest thing you'll get away with is kind of mid-tech knives. If you don't know what that means, it's knives that were water jetted and possibly heat treated by someone else, but they were, you know, final grind, like all of the bevels and the cleaning of the profile and putting the handles on them and profiling the handles, all that stuff was done by somebody. And you can't have like a full table of Midtex. You can have like a set of EDCs, but your rest of your knife, the bolt of your knives have to be knives that you made. So, but there are a few people that have their chef knives water jetted because they have specific chef's knives, and if they're like stainless, some of them will have them water jetted and heat treated by the people who do the water jetting. And but anyways, a lot of the makers are actual makers. They're not CNC beveled or anything like that. They grind them, do all this stuff. Now for me, I have zero Midtex. Every single knife that I make, I am responsible for every single part of it. All the hand sanding, all the grinding, all the heat treating, all the forging, all the everything. And I like that when we go down here to this event, it's mostly those people. There are zero like fake Damascus knives. There's none of those vendors. It is 100% makers. It's absolutely awesome. But I think it's kind of cool that I'm going to be the person forging on the stage at a show that is started off as primarily Forged in Fire contestants.
It was like it was a hangout. It started off in Cowboy's backyard.
Yeah.
And grew.
And
but it's a great event. It's got stuff for kids. They
Yes, it
have
does.
bake and takes. They've
Yes.
got.
So you have the Phoenix
There's
knives.
some really pretty blue bonnet fields out here. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
ADHD.
No, there are. So with this show, it's held by Phoenix Knives. If you don't know who Phoenix Knives, it's Cowboy Zemansky, Elena Zemansky. They are absolutely awesome power team right there. So Cowboy, he has both him and Elena. They have a business called Phoenix Knives down there in Belleville, and if you need to look it up because they have a showroom now to where they're actually going to be carrying makers' knives plus their knives and everything. They're going to be doing kind of like a Dragon Forge experience type thing at a certain point, but they have the kind of like make and take experiences there now where you can forge horseshoe knives, you can forge different things like that. And the difference between them and the Dragon Forge experience is they forge them and grind them like right there. Like you actually see the whole entire process. I gotta let this person go around me. He's about 3 inches from my back bumper. And he's about to just be 3 inches behind the bumper of the person who was right in front of me because they're going the same speed as me.
Yeah, he's got to deliver that transit.
So he's not going very far. Now, another blue bonnet thing. We have all these like fields of blue bonnets. That's what Texas is known for. Now, with this particular show, again, Phoenix Knives, they do it. So at the show, they have those like take and make experiences there. They have their little section set up on the outside in like the kind of the arena area, and they'll have the forges going, the anvils, the people there doing the experiences with people. And it's cool because they get to forge their horseshoe knife, they get a sheath for it, you know, it gets ground and sharpened and everything all right there for them. And for the youngsters to go out there and get used to swinging a hammer, I think it's pretty cool. And
We apparently are going to have to look up some of the names of the towns in Pennsylvania and maybe even in Texas because they've been going up. We mentioned like names, and now there's all these different names of towns, and you're not going to be able to see these comments, and they're just weird. Duck, yes, we do have your knives, and we have Mule.
Yeah, I've got Mule's knives or Mule's knife and yours. And I put a really good edge on that chopper, so it is like shaving sharp now, and so it's good. I'll send you a picture.
He said,
of the edge.
hell yeah.
yeah. So we're good there, and made sure everything was clean for both both of y'all's knives so that as I show them the people, you know, everything looks good and all that.
But if you guys catch this video, it is in Belleville. It's just northwest of Houston, southeast of Austin. It's about 2 hours away from San Antonio. Yeah. So,
and it's a really chill drive. Like going down there is actually pretty nice. I was doing almost this drive twice a week for the whole entire Dragon Forge experience. I was driving down to Houston almost. It's
to Todd Mission.
Todd Mission, which is just outside of what is that? It starts with the M. Like Marigold or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Outside of Houston, and yeah, it was a good drive every Friday and every Monday, which I'll be doing again.
It's further north of Houston.
Yeah. But it's a fun show. I'm happy that they're letting me do the demo. I think it's going to be cool showing people what you can do in that amount of time. Now, if I was going for like trying to see how many knives I could forge
slow down just a little bit.
in 2 hours, it would be, you know, I could forge quite a bit more than that. Whenever I did the live forging at the Texas Custom Knife Show, I could have forged, I don't know, 5-6 knives in that time period.
It's because you only can put one of them in the flame at a time. Stretch your time out instead of doing like 3 of them.
Yeah, I had all the steel in the forge whenever I was forging at the Texas Custom Knife Show.
If I would have seen it before you did it, I would have like stopped you, but you were already in it, and I'm like, oh, because I was selling and you were forging.
I was like an hour and a half in, and I was like, all right, third knife's done. And then Steve Jennings went and bought more steel, and I, in the last like 45 minutes, forged that huge kukri out of well, at that point it was I forged like a big buoy, and I ended up turning it into a kukri the second day. But I took a 3/8 by 1 3/4 by 12-inch bar of 1095 and forged it into a big old, and it's full distal tapers and everything. So, oh, that kukri that I forged, I'm actually going to be finishing that either on the channel or something. I've got an idea for it. I'm gonna change the process on it. I was watching a video that Neil Kamamura put out where I guess he just released a video, but I think he did that build at the beginning of the year because he keeps talking about like Happy New Year's and stuff like that in the video, and we're like months away from that. He forged this big integral bolster kukri, and because I have the bolster still in that, like, it's just over 3/8 of an inch thick, it's almost half an inch thick, I think I'm going to take that and turn it into a hidden tang integral bolster kukri, and I think it's going to look really cool. The reason why I'm doing a hidden tang is because I did like a oversized handle on it, and I don't really like the handle profile that much, so I'm going to change it into an integral bolster and do a really cool handle on it too. So it'll be awesome. The blade on that kukri is like 15 inches. So just the blade, just the cutting edge is like 15 inches. So it's a big knife. And I think overall length on it after the handle is like 20, almost 20 inches. So that's after I make the handle shorter and turn it into a hidden tang. It'll still be like 20 inches long. It's almost a sword. But even though I'm making it a hidden tang and it's such a big knife, there's going to be an entire knives worth of steel in that inside that handle. It's a huge hidden tang, and I might make it a through tang. I don't know. I'll play with that later. But yeah, I'm excited about this show. I'm excited to forge. Hopefully, y'all are excited to see me forge on the stage. Y'all have not seen me do that yet. Y'all have seen me forge in a booth at the Texas Custom Knife Show, and y'all have seen me forge in my shop and, do different things. Because I also forged at the Texas Farrier Supply event. So
that means that Eric's going to be streaming at 9 a.m. Central Time tomorrow, Saturday.
Saturday.
And then 10 a.m. Central Time on Sunday.
Yep. And then we've got that show. I've got a hammer in May that I'm going to be going to, and I'm going to give you all the info on that. The thing that I'm going to do with that hammer in, I'm not actually forging at that. The title for my section of that hammer in is, how to build a successful YouTube channel. But really what I'm going to do is talk more about social media presence instead of just YouTube, because I think that if I'm just talking about YouTube, it's not going to give everybody the amount of knowledge that they really need to know about social media interaction and what to do within that. And I'm actually going to go back and forth with that with Nisha. I wish that she might be able to go with me to that show. If she can go with me to that hammer in, I'm actually going to probably have her talk a little bit too, because she has done a lot with the Rivers Experience's social media on top of me. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have a TikTok channel. I wouldn't have nearly the amount of Instagram posts or a lot of different things like that. She's the one that does a lot of that stuff and has really good ideas for it. So we'll see how that goes. But the hard part with people and their social media presences is people don't really think about consistency with that. So we have that hammer in, and then I've got Blade Atlanta. If y'all didn't know this, I've got a table at Blade Atlanta. It's table 9Q. It is my table. If you look up Blade Atlanta and you look up the exhibitors, you see the Rivers Experience on there. So I've got a table there. 9Q is the table. I'll talk more about that as we get closer to Blade Atlanta. I've got 2 projects that I'm going to be working on that are going to be specifically for Blade Atlanta. That'll be on the table, and they're going to be nice projects. Those are going to be specifically for that. Plus, I'll have to replace whatever knives I sell from the Texas Select Show so that I have the inventory for Blade Atlanta. So I'm assuming EDCs and things like that. But whenever I'm there at Blade Atlanta, the difference between the way it was the last few years, because this is my 4th year going to Blade Atlanta. This is the first year where I actually have a table there. So instead of being there and walking around, I'm actually going to be there selling. And it's where my table's at is in a really good spot. It's in the main hall, and a lot of my friends are in that same hall and roughly near where I'm at, so I'm excited about that. And so we'll have that, and then after that we have the Texas Farrier Supply show at the Stockyards in September, and then we have, and I'll be doing a demo there. I don't know exactly what type of demo I'm going to be doing there, but I will be doing a demo. If y'all didn't know this, Texas Farrier Supply is a channel sponsor. So you have Two Bastards, Texas Smithy and Supply. They're the hammer sponsor. Then you have
Little Gray Wolf Forge. Yes, Blade Atlanta is the massive show. Massive.
I thought we were going to get ran over by that truck for a second there. It just did not slow down. He was just like, all right, I'm going past you whether you're there or not. So yes, Blade Atlanta is the, I don't know if, I think it's the world's largest, it is the world's largest knife show. That's what it's its claim to, I wouldn't say fame, but its claim is that it's the world's largest knife show, and it is massive. So the upside to that is this is the first year where people will be able to buy stuff from me there. So that'll be beneficial, and a lot of the people who are at the show will get to see my stuff. Now, I typically bring like 4 or 5 knives, even whenever I'm just there, so people can see some of the projects. But at Blade, Texas, there's a lot of people who know who I am and who I see, and I get to take pictures with people. I see a lot of the fans. But when it comes to Blade Atlanta, there is a way larger amount of fans that attend that show for the Rivers Experience. I mean, I'll be walking from the show to dinner and take pictures with people who recognize me on the sidewalk type stuff, which is pretty cool. But those people will actually get to see the full table of knives, which is going to be pretty cool. I'm kind of excited about that, you know, with them being able to see some of the builds and hold them, because I'm going to have the War Scythe there. I'm going to have 4 of the challenge builds there, so people who've actually seen those bigger challenge builds, those will be there, plus everything else. If they don't sell before then, that's true. So yeah, we got that. That's the Blade Atlanta. And like I said, the Texas Fair Supply event. I don't know what type of demo I'm going to do there, just because it's going to be indoors at the stockyards, and if it's carpeted, then I can't forge.
Hey,
so
we're in Decatur, so we might want to check our speed.
My wife making sure I don't speed. I don't know if any of your wives do that.
Yeah, Doug, how's your wife do?
Doug does not have a wife.
I know.
So
It was
we've got the
sarcastic.
I know, the Texas Fair Supply. That event is gonna be pretty cool. And then we've got, what is it after that? The Texas Custom Knife Show, or is it?
Hold on. You have Texas Select this month. Lost Bastards Hammer in May. Blade Atlanta in June. In July no.
Oh, and then I'm doing a demo at my car show that my brother's doing in like April. It's the part that I'm doing is more of a charity thing, where I'm going to forge a knife there, and then I'm going to do a silent auction for one of my knives, and the money's going to go towards Patsy's house for that knife that I auctioned for there. All the proceeds from that knife sale are going to go as a donation, and that's in April. But I don't know if I might live stream that. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be on a Saturday, and he just thought that it would be cool for people to be able to see something like that at a car show, because you wouldn't really see that normally.
And then we have
Blade Atlanta in June.
Blade Atlanta in June.
September is Texas Fair Supply.
Texas Fair Supply Hammer in, and then
November.
October you're probably starting back up at the Dragon Forge.
Yep.
And then November you will be doing, I don't know, November was whenever you did Texas
Custom Knife Show.
But you'll be at Texas Custom Knife Show in November, and continuing with the Dragon Forge experience at Texas Renaissance Fair.
Yeah. So we got it's a full year of stuff, and this is actually not even going to be the craziest year. I'm assuming that next year is going to be even crazier for the demos, because the more that I do this at the shows, and the more that people watch the live streams, the more that people are there. There's more people that want me to come and do it at their shows.
Almost a turn indicator.
Put that in here.
Hold on, I got it.
She's gonna make sure our navigation is navigating the right way. I disconnected it in order to do this live stream, and the navigation is not navigating while I'm live streaming. So whenever we're doing these shows, the whole point behind this is to, of course, expand on what I do and being able to do it at more shows. So if I can travel to other large shows and do that stuff, I will be doing that. And it's good publicity for the actual shows to have me come down, do the live stream, and have that type of... Imagine this. Imagine if you had a show and if you did a commercial, that commercial might get viewed by, I don't know, a few hundred people maybe, and you have that versus me doing my live stream, and on average the live streams at the shows get about 100,000 views. So having...
No, we're good.
Okay, having that much awareness about what you're doing and what event it is actually kind of crazy. Having 100,000 views on a live stream at your event is pretty large. So, I mean, hopefully it helps these shows out. I think it's awesome, and I think it's cool showing y'all the actual live streams at the shows as opposed to just doing it in my shop. You know, I just think it's cool. At one of these shows, I'd really like to do a challenge type thing where I forge against somebody. So we do not so much a battle, but kind of like a battle, like how they do the Forge and Fire thing, where you know, we get there to the show, we do 2 hours of forging, and someone, you know, whoever is leading the event or whatever, actually just hands us the steel we're going to forge and says, all right, you're making a dagger, or you're making a, you know, whatever, and then we have to forge that in that time frame as close to possible. You know, the only reason why I'm not gonna say anything negative about Forged in Fire. I like the show. Forged in Fire is not what got me into knife making. A person who was on Forged in Fire and their shop setup is what got me into knife making. The actual stuff happening in the studio of Forged in Fire, I think that's really cool. I don't have a press and power hammer and all that stuff, and they actually tend to lean heavier into the press, the power hammer, and all of that. I didn't have any of that. I didn't even have a 2x72 whenever I started. I had a 1x30 from Harbor Freight, and I didn't even have a forge. I had a little matte gas torch wannabe forge and a little can of oil. So whenever I first started, my friend Jeff Peters, who should actually be at this show, I had won a knife from him in a raffle, and it was a Farrier's rasp knife, and I thought, oh, I didn't even know you could make knives out of these things. And I ended up picking his brain. I made a file knife. Of course, y'all saw like the third file knife is the heirloom knife. That's like, you know, the pinnacle of my channel. It is the most viewed video I've had on the channel, and a lot of people who view the channel came on because of that knife build.
Oh, he's not knocking a 1x30. We have two, and it still gets used.
Yes. Now, I am using my 2x42 from Grizzly more for sharpening. I've been using my 1x30 for the longest time for sharpening, for the last several years. But whenever it comes down to it, it wasn't the show and all the tools and all the stuff from the studio that got me into making knives that made me decide I could do that. It was Jeff Peters in a one-car garage, in a section of the one-car garage, making knives and knocking them bad boys out. It was awesome. And I thought, okay, if he can do that and he could win with the minimal amount of tools that he had in that shop, maybe I can make some knives. I started asking questions. He was like, yeah, just do this, this, and this. Started doing it. And then from that point forward, it was over. I was making knives. And then the video for the heirloom knife got mega popular. And then I was like, all right, I'm a knife maker on YouTube. And at this point, I was a YouTuber that made knives. I'm more of a knife maker that makes YouTube content now because of the amount of knives that I make off of YouTube. They used to be primarily made for the channel and things like that, but now I make so many off the channel that I'm a knife maker that does content. And so, long story short, the whole point behind that little rant about the Forged in Fire was I don't feel like people on Forged in Fire during their episodes forge as much to profile and finish as what I would want to do in a challenge build off. I feel like they forge roughly to profile, then they get over on the 2x72s and they hog off all the material and they grind it the rest of the way into a knife. You know, I'll see some people who pretty much forged out into a bar, put a little bit of a point to it, forge a rough section of a handle, and then they go and they grind a 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch off the profile, and then they grind in their bevels. You know, the bevels aren't forged, the full handle profile is not forged,
Now,
and all of that.
those are extreme conditions. It's extremely hot.
Yes, okay, but before she says that stuff, they are extreme conditions, but I would want to put ourselves in the same conditions. And the only difference is I wouldn't want to give us 3 hours. I want it done in 2 hours. So, you know, it's one of those things where I'm not that worried about it because I forge knives and stuff on the live stream all the time in 2 hours. So y'all know that I can forge whatever. I can do several knives in that amount of time. Now the difference is whenever it comes to Forged in Fire, a lot of the time they're having to take like hammerheads and forge it down into something that could be knife still. So they are having to go from like chopping off the section of a hammerhead and then squishing it down to a bar and then forging that into a knife. So there's things like that where they got to make the Damascus, so they got to stack it, you know, they got to cut it down, clean it, stack it, weld it, and then forge weld it, and then turn it into a knife. So if that takes them an hour and a half, well, they only got an hour and a half to forge a knife profile and make a knife. So I'm not saying, that's the reason why I'm not trying to talk trash about the show or anything like that, because there are things that they go through that are pretty crazy. Or like whenever they say, yeah, you're going to come on the show, and then they tell them, all right, you got to build a coal forge out of that stack of scrap, and you got to use a coal forge. And some of these people don't really have any experience with coal forges, and they're like, make it happen, no power tools. So, you know, there are times whenever the show is pretty crazy, but for the most part, I would want to forge it as close to profile as possible, so that whenever we were done forging, you could look at it and go, oh, that's that thing. I don't know. Maybe some people would be into that, maybe some people wouldn't. The difference between that and the Forged in Fire show is whenever they're showing the judges the knives at the end of the 3 hours, you know, you get to see, for the most part, grounded bevels, transition lines, and things like that. But I know I see some people who turn in their knives and none of that stuff's done.
You wrap up my arms into
Oh, my tripod over here is getting sore arms. But anyways, y'all we'll talk about all this stuff, and if I can go through and ask Nisha what y'all are talking about the whole entire time, I'll ask her, and if I can address any of that later, I'll address that. But yeah, tomorrow, forging, 2 hours live on a stage. Be there, come hang out.
9 a.m. Central.
Yep. And we'll get it done. Other than that, I'll catch y'all later. I'm gonna continue driving in this crappy weather, and hopefully everybody around us is smart while they're driving. But yeah, I'll catch y'all later, okay?